or somebody, you can let me know your email address and I will include you.
Oh, thank you. I think I already received them.
Oh, good, good, good.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, I can't believe it is week 7 coming up. And once again, Marjorie, your meditation, I almost wish we had the recording of your meditation as well, because it's so, it sets such a lovely lovely vibe for what we're about to do, and it always ties in so beautifully. So
Great. So glad.
so here we are, week 7. I can't believe it's already week 7. And a lot of what Marjorie was talking about in her meditation is it's the theme of this week, but there's also in the creative process, in the story of creation, it's also the time when Jesus is on the cross and he has the 2 thieves. So the recording that I have of Marvin, he talks about the 2 thieves quite a lot. When I don't know how many people knew Marvin, but on Good Friday, which is coming up this Friday, he would do an all-day meditation. And I don't know if anybody ever had the privilege of going to the all-day meditation. It was absolutely amazing. And he would, yeah, that's great, Pauline. It was also silent when I did it. So we had to, he'd do the Stations of the Cross. So for 7 hours, I think it was 7 hours, he would do one station, he would do a meditate, he would talk about it, the metaphysical meaning behind it, and then it was a meditation, and then we would go off and journal and do whatever, but it was mostly silent, and a lot of people would also fast. So it was really magical. I mean, I only got to do it once, and it was absolutely phenomenal. The part, I'm going to just jump right into what week 7 is, which is day 7. The Sabbath, God rested. The 7th and the final step in the creative process is rest. The 7th day refers to the mind's realization of fulfillment. It's resting in the assurance that all that has been imagined in will come forth in expression. And that's Paul Hasselbeck. This step is to trust and surrender. The true Sabbath occurs when we become quiet and still within. It is the realization and the assurance that manifestation is forthcoming. The affirmation for the week is I let go and I let God. I also have a second one, which is Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. I find this, and the snippet that I have from Marvin, I find is really good because he talks about the 2 thieves. So it's sort of when you think about it, it is maybe even what Margie was talking about, and you think about Buddhism, where a lot of the thought around Buddhism is that the form of suffering is with attachment. So letting go is the detachment. And when you think about that, that's what I think about when I think about the 2 thieves. They're the attachment, and he calls it the malignant aggression and the insatiable acquisitiveness. And he calls these the favorite forms of suffering, which I find really interesting. So I'm going to let him take over now and play my snippet that I have for him.
You've got to root out the negativity, that's all. Now we're in the 6th year of this process, of this creative process, whereas you are in the 6th week of your 7th week now of your creative process. The process is the same, okay? At this stage, we want to let go and let God. In other words, somehow give our creation freedom. But to do that, we have to get at the root of these 2 forms of evil, that originate in human consciousness: malignant aggression and insatiable acquisitiveness. Your assignment then this week is to discover, okay, and identify your favorite forms of suffering in these two ways. Your malignant aggression, and I'm going to just close with these two sort of helpful hints, I hope here, helpful, I hope. Look to the feelings. The philosopher Hegel, this is Scott Peck writes also in his book, The People of the Lie, he says, Hegel, the philosopher, believed feeling to be the lowest function of consciousness because it constantly confuses subjective truth with objective truth. And this is at the root of this self-righteous anger. People mistake their subjective feelings of hurt for being universal principles of truth that other people should then change and abide by. See, it's worth thinking about, okay? The difference between subjective feelings and objective truth. By the same token, he warns about the dangers of intellectual training in the thinking faculty. He says one of the unfortunate side effects of intellectual training is that it can make us as skillful at avoiding the truth as at finding it. And this we're very familiar with, okay? That's another way of, dishonesty, basically. It's finding dishonest, ulterior motives, not being quite honest. Remember, it's lies that are both at the roots and at the fruits of human evil. So this is what we're looking for. The questions then concerning malignant aggression that I want you to be working on and hopefully honestly looking at this Friday. The question is, what are you so angry about? And get to the root of it. Take responsibility for it. That's why Fillmore made that rule in the early days. It's not okay to go around being angry all the time. Deal with your anger. You're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting others too, but you're primarily hurting yourself with anger, okay? So get to the root of it. What are you so angry about? See, that's the root of malignant aggression. And the other one for insatiable acquisitiveness, what are you so afraid of? What is making you so needy? What is causing you to be so unconsciously greedy? The answer to the first one, folks, and here's the motivation I hope that will cause you to get serious about this, what you're so angry about, is simply you do not have a right to be angry. No exceptions. Okay, zero tolerance for that. Sure, you can lose your temper, but I'm talking about this so angry about. Extremely destructive, self-destructive, and collectively destructive to a consciousness like this. You do not have a right to be angry. So the question is, what are you so angry about? The other one, what are you so afraid of? I'll just say this about it. Here's the truth about that situation. Greed and fear and neediness. The more greedy and the more needy you are, the faster your good runs away from you. This is true about love. If you're needy, you're going to drive love away. It's true about money. If you're too greedy and needy, money will flee from you. Think about this for your own good, these two simple questions. We're going to take them up in the second hour of our Good Friday work, but be prepared to return to them all day long, because that's the crux of and the key to that whole Good Friday thing is those two thieves crucified, one on each side of Christ. They represent something in your consciousness. If you can identify that, you're going to unleash a great deal of power for the resurrection. Let's take a moment now to prepare ourselves for this Holy Week. Thank you, God, for all the insights, for the courage, the persistence to follow through on these insights, to honestly, ruthlessly explore our own consciousness and root out whatever needs to be released. I let go and let God. Together, please. I let go and let God. Let that be our affirmation throughout the week to keep us on track until next Sunday for the resurrection. Thank you, God, for the opportunities that come our way this week. Let's bless our offering now.
Wow. Oh, wow. As always, his teachings have so much. They have so much that just is packed in. And I was reflecting on this past 7 weeks and sharing the creative process with all of you. And it's just been so wonderful. And I realized something, which was that every time I do it, it evolves to another level for me. And I realize that it's because it's cumulative every year. Even though I do it every year, it's different every year. And that's what I love about metaphysics, is that it's always renewing itself and it's always looking at something deeper. And that's what I love. That's how I became involved with Unity and Marvin and metaphysics. And then that's how I actually ended up meeting Dr. Maya, because the tapes, as you can hear them, they're very choppy at times because they're so old. And then I met Dr. Maya, and I think Dr. Maya, you were doing the Marvin recordings a few years ago. So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. But I wonder now, would anybody like to make any comments or share about the past, not only the past week or what's coming up, but anything that they'd like to share about the creative process?
I think every year, I think Lent. I have very bad memories of Lent from my Catholic childhood. And I think, what's the point of this whole thing?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like this all the time. And then once I get into it, I realize the value of having a time and a place to really concentrate on letting go and the creative process. So it's really good for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I was also raised Catholic, and it was the same thing. It was a lot of it was about giving things up, and being a kid, it was like, well, why would I want to give things up? I don't want to do that. And it was having to go and do things and go to church and all of these things, and never really appreciated it. And I remember going with my mother to do the Stations of the Cross, and I never really understood it. And I never really, but to bring in that story the way that Reverend Marvin did it on Good Friday was absolutely amazing. It was amazing because and there were so many people there taking notes. And we were and from a metaphysical point of view, even like the way that he talks about the two thieves.
Interesting.
The anger and the fear.
Yeah.
And just those questions in itself. What are you so angry about? What are you so fearful of? Mm-hmm.
I just miss these good old days. It's just as if the week before Easter, I get this feeling that I want to be surrounded with prayer and people like all of you. It's a need that I have to pray and get more and more the feeling of Christ. And I really appreciate what is happening now. But I miss the good old days at Unity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me too, Easter and the coming up of Easter is my favorite. It is my favorite time of year. I mean, much more than Christmas. And I think, Pauline, even when you were talking, for me, there's so much meaning behind Easter. So much behind Easter. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a little harder up here where, for example, today it's snowing. So
Yes.
concept of Easter and new growth and lovely flowers is not something that's visually out there. So it's a matter of, I don't know, waiting and hoping
Yeah.
for that aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been sharing the affirmations every week with my daughter, as I do every year. And last week it was life can only be lived forward, but understood backwards. And one thing I noticed about the creative process too is that once I am working and I try to get very involved in that week and bring it back as my week goes on, then all of a sudden I will notice things that I may have just passed by. And I was listening to something yesterday. I was part of a Zoom meeting, and it was that same concept about living life forward, but understanding it backwards. And I was able to share with a group of people about the creative process. And I said, it's amazing how because we're so busy that things can pass us by and we won't notice it. And I don't know if I would have noticed it as much if I wasn't doing the creative process. So when that concept came up again, I was like, there it is again. And we're essentially still in week 6. So that's great as well.
I even find that in my art in a very concrete way, that I can only understand what I was trying to say 6 days, 6 weeks, or even 6 months later. I can look at it. And it is amazing. It perfectly illustrates what you're saying there, living forwards, but understanding it backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was talking to my daughter, and then I was saying that this week coming up, last week I was telling her about the living. She's coming to, I haven't seen her for a year, and she's coming to Vancouver. And a lot of she's coming, and she said, I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm going to see people again that I love, but I'm also have these, fearful feelings as well from when I left. And then so last week or the week before, I was talking about, living life forward. She says, hang on, I got to write that down. And then this week it was the let go and let God. It was to surrender. So it was like, yes, there you go. Every week there's something. And for me, it's about being very present as much as possible, because it's not easy. We're busy and we're doing our things. It's not always easy to surrender. And I think, Marjorie, you talked about that in your meditation as well. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm thinking about what Pauline is bringing up, and a call to this immersion of Good Friday. When I look at the notes, I got greed and fear. What am I afraid of? And these 3 words he brought in: greed and fear and neediness, and really a very serious reflection for Good Friday. What am I afraid of? And but I thought always that in order to go through Good Friday, we needed to be in community. We needed to be, like in the old days, as Pauline talks about, we would come together and we would have Good Friday service in the sanctuary over several hours. And Wilma was on earlier, and she would remember that too. And it was a really incredibly serious day, even at Unity, of reflection in the what am I afraid of in this and so I was thinking about Friday. I know Marco will not be with us, but I'm doing the Good Friday noon meditation, and I was just wondering if we wanted to extend it a bit I'll give it some thought. I have nothing specific, but I know what people mean, that Good Friday energy, especially those of us who have a Catholic background, there maybe also in the Protestant tradition. It was a really intense day, prayer and reflection, and there was a beauty in that kind of immersion. So I'll give it some thought. I know Pauline is giving me a little nudge in that direction. Yeah, the challenge from Marvin today feels quite like, how do we do this really? Is it a Good Friday call, or how do we do this? Do you have any thoughts about that, Debbie, in terms of a kind of reflection here that is almost beyond our conscious awareness? You know, I mean, to ask myself, what am I afraid of? Where am I needy? Where am I greedy? It takes work. It takes energy to get there. Right off the bat, it's not. So any suggestion from any of you? I mean, some of us are journaling, some of us are keeping a diary, some of us are used to that process.
Wait,
But
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
When he said, which I thought, and I made notes of it as well when he was talking, was when he talked about, which I think is the clue, that he talked about feelings, and then he talked about thinking. And this, if you notice, this is a theme that runs throughout the whole creative process. And you can say thinking and feeling, and it seems so simple, and yet it's not.
And it's none of my business,
And
remember?
it's none of my business. I love that. My thoughts and my feelings are none of my business. Okay. Wrap your head around that one. When he talked about the subjective feelings versus the objective truth, I thought that was brilliant. Yes, it's like, it's just because I feel something, this is the way I interpret it, it doesn't mean that it's the truth. Because everybody can feel something different. And even when he uses the word neediness, I have to say I'm not a fan of that word, because I think there are times in life when we need something. So I don't like the connotation that neediness has. And I think that observing your feelings and your thinking is very important, instead of rejecting them, to moving on. But to say that they are the absolute truth, for me, is not true. That's what I feel, but it's not what the rest. And I think that then ties in to the question of, what am I so angry about? It can you can do a bit of a deeper dig. Then the next part, when he said, and I love this as well, when he got to the thinking, and he talked about the intellectual thinking, and it can be the avoiding of dishonesty. So I love that as well, because I have noticed it a lot in academia, where it's like this intellectualizing of concepts to the point that it's too high above, and then it is a form of dishonesty. I love that. That's the bit. I don't know if anybody can explain it any better, but I come back to academia and intellectualizing, but not actually getting down to the root. And that's the other thing that he talks about. The root of everything And then that creates the fruit.
But that's a very serious leap. You know, you go from my thinking and my thoughts are none of my business in that the way you touch on it, and then say, if they're not none of my business, then when I am giving credence to my thoughts and my feelings, and I live by giving, making that my foundation, then that leads potentially to living a life where I'm to deal with fear, because I'm not in truth. I'm in subjectivity, right? I'm in my own subjectivity of feeling and thinking, and then I potentially fall prey to neediness and fear and greediness. Those three words that he said were part of that package.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like my thoughts and my feelings are none of my business. Well, let me tolerate that concept first, but then look beyond it and say, oh, that's basically the trap. There's a trap there that leads to these three things that I need to reflect on Good Friday. At least that's kind of how I'm starting to think of my thoughts and my feelings are none of my business. It's very important that I hold that, because that is not the lens through which I see the truth. That is through the lens through which I see total subjectivity. And that leads to fear, neediness, and greed. Am I getting it?
Remember, oh, go ahead, Marjorie.
No, I'm saying I hear you, Dr. Myron. I still have a problem with that, because if my feelings and my thoughts are none of my business, what's left? I could understand giving up one or the other, but can I give up both?
But it's for 1 week.
Just for one. Oh, okay. That's a good reminder.
That's one thing that he said, do it for 1 week.
And in that concept, it's none of my business. It's not that it's not my happening. It's not that it doesn't happen. It's just not where I want to be giving my authority to.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
I feel that very strongly right now with what's going on, as living in America or being connected to America. It's a fantastic opportunity to practice this. My feelings and my thoughts, yes, I have those. Yes, these are my reactions, but it's none of my business. It's not mine to make that the reality of my life. That's not my truth. I have to work on that. I mean, it's going on in America. I have to work on that. It's constant. It's a barrage. And then to see that what's really lurking behind my obsession to say I should be on a bandwagon for what's going on. I should be upset what's going on. I should be distraught by what's behind there is my own neediness, my own fears, which are what I'm supposed to. This is my Good Friday work, to see that when I get caught up in my feelings and my thought as my reality, then I'm actually fall prey, I'm using some strange word here, to those what he calls evils. I fall prey in that I become, and that is the link that I'm hoping I can capture a glimpse at Good Friday. How does that, if I'm willing to say that my thoughts and my feelings are not mine to live by, I have them, but it's not my truth, capital T. then if I say that, how does that bring me face to face with those three elements that he brought up today? How does it bring me to see the lies or the dishonesty? Wow. I don't know. I lost you all, right? You all said, oh, I don't know what Maya is talking about.
No, not at
No,
all.
it's very good, very
Yeah.
good, very good. One question that came up for me as he was talking, and then as Pauline was talking, as Margie was talking, everybody was talking, was in this concept, which is very deep, is especially with the feelings, because they seem to come up so quickly. If I react to the feelings, or I think that my feelings, especially Maya, what you were talking about with the state of the world in America and all the conflict, I come back to a place of because there's so much talk all the time. There's so much negativity all the time. There's so much fear all the time. And as everybody is acting on it, they're acting on their fear, on their anger, on their rage, and everything else. My question is, and we can go back to history to see what the result was, what do all those actions actually create? Do they create war? Do they create less in many, many areas? Do they create any joy? And I come back to those things. If I participate in whatever I'm going to do, is it creating something that is beneficial? Does it make any relevant change? Or does it just add to the fear and the anger and the distress in the world or in my environment?
Does that lead in the end to saying there's nothing concrete one can do about the situation of the world? One should just meditate on. I mean, that the connection between the two is where I have a problem. Like Leonard Cohen always said, where's a decent place to stand in a massacre? You know, it runs through my mind. So I hear everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. But does that mean cutting ourselves off from action? I guess not. And I haven't really thought about it enough to figure out how it applies. But it's a very deep idea.
I just had this conversation with somebody today who's actually a potential minister in residence for us for the summer. And she was saying, bringing up what you're bringing up, Marjorie, how do I choose, she said, between joining the protests against, I mean, really putting myself on the line and getting out there and taking a stand and being fierce about it, and being a spiritual leader at the, how do I do that, right? How do I bring these two? They don't seem to. And I used the word navigate. I said either as a mystic, modern day mystic, it's the same thing as if you would call yourself a spiritual leader. You might not want to be a spiritual leader, but you definitely we are standing in this belief that we are modern day mystics. And at that point, you become a navigate. You have to learn to navigate, not one or the other, but to hold the ship and go forward in this painful straddle of both all the time, with an open heart to the pain in Gaza and the truth of your spiritual knowledge, and to navigate that knot. And every time you fall here, you make this ineffective. Every time I do only this, I become artificial, But to hold the two and to stand in the middle of these two, I like that word, to navigate. If you ever sailed boats or ran a boat or been on a boat, this navigating. And I think that's the modern day mystic, is a navigator. And that doesn't mean that you don't fall off, and that doesn't mean that you get horrified. And that doesn't mean that you can't believe what's going on, all that. But that's in that moment when that happens, I have let go on this end. You know, Jung has this amazing concept of the tension between the two opposites. That's where individuation occurs, or modern day mysticism occurs. To hold the tension between the opposites, the dark and the light, your higher self, your lower self, your shadow and your consciousness, holding the tension. And that, I always visualize that there's a rubber band there. And sometimes that rubber band gets really stretched, very thin. The tension is so optimum, painful, and ready to blow. But that tension is an energy that produces yourself, capital S, your individuation. You're coming into your mystical being self as a embodied person here on the planet. But this tension, that's the, well, anyway, enough of me. I'm going to give you a sermon here otherwise.
I think that that's fantastic. I think that you just, the way you did that, Dr. Meyer, was brilliant. I think that maybe your elastic band is that was said beautifully. That's all I'm gonna say. It was
A lot of
really
strength in an elastic band, yeah, you're saying, and flexibility and all of those things. I have to go, guys.
Yeah,
So
I know, I do too, but that rubber band, that is painful.
Yes.
If you ever got snapped by a rubber
Yes.
band, that can really,
whack you, yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for
Thank you.
joining. It's been marvelous. It's been wonderful.
that's Debbie for her effort.
Thank you, Debbie. Oh, yeah.
We appreciate you. We bless you. We love you, Debbie. Remember, take a deep breath and soak it up, soak it up, soak it up. Because this is the best we can give, is this incredible, heartfelt appreciation for what you have given us, what you have done. And we know that you're giving it from this happy place, because you've been doing this every year. So love and blessings to you. And we pray and hope that you'll do that every year for us, right?
Thank you back. It has been wonderful and you've all contributed so much and it's been amazing for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, too.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Lou.
Bye.
Bye.
Why can't I? I don't know. close.
Easy to jive all these instruments.
I had.
It's not easy to jive all these.
Yeah, right. I wanted to close the recording, but it won't let me from this end. So I'm just gonna get out of it.